But with that said, let's start with the movie Senior, which, if you guys don't know what the movie Senior is, it is a movie about Robert Downey Sr., who is the father of Robert Downey Jr. This is a documentary about the last few years of Robert Downey Sr.'s life. He is a underground filmmaker in the 60s, Senior is, and he is a guy just making experimental, making weird, making provocative, making irreverent comedies in New York with his family. And this is an exploration of not only Senior's career, but it's also an exploration of Junior's career. It's an exploration of how movie filmmaking has changed from the 60s to the 2000s. It is an exploration of family. It's explores life and death. And it's also just a movie about art and artistry. What I was so impressed with this movie is it's willing to be all of those movies, and yet it still feels coherent, and there's a real strong emotional tie in this movie. When they are exploring all of these ideas, the film breaks it up into certain sections. So I think you could really contend that the first third of the film, that is them getting the audience familiar with Robert Downey Sr. So if you don't know what the films he has made before, this is a kind of a brief 30-minute overview. These were the type of films he made. These were the messages. This was the civil rights era kind of infused in this filmmaking, tied with this Greenwich Village, 1960s New York, post-punk, just kind of atmosphere that just allowed for artists like Andy Warhol and for Robert Downey Sr., these types of just like so anti-commercialist artists to find some form of commercial success. And it's really helpful for someone specifically like me who just doesn't have any real knowledge of Robert Downey Sr.'s filmography. I will admit, after watching this documentary, I did end up buying the Up All Night Criterion collection of, I believe it's 6 of Robert Downey Sr.'s films from his filmography, I should say. But you get to understand who he is as an artist. And also that's a great, interesting point, because you then also get to understand what influenced Robert Downey Jr. You get to see how a lot of the humor that Senior uses really carries on to the Junior persona that he kind of weaponized to his career heights. Like, you see where those two come from and where they exist, and how Junior is influenced by Senior. And that's a great thing, because you also just get to see the effect that the art has on the family. You know, this is a family that is all working together to make Senior's films. The wife is on set. She's an actress in the films. Junior has a small part in some of Senior's films. You get to just see this family kind of grow up together. And with that, you also get to see the downturns of that. You get to see Junior get addicted to drugs really early on in his life, because of just kind of the lack of parental vision that Senior has. And it's that dynamic between Junior and Senior that makes this documentary so interesting. There's this raw honesty between the two characters, and it's so much of this film is the unspoken. It's the truths that are said amongst these two that maybe are never said verbatim. They're never said aloud, but yet we're able to interpret what it means. Like when they just have a small talk about looking back at the 1970s or talking about drugs, you can just understand it's maybe some of it is Senior apologizing or Junior taking accountability or all of that. It's the silent understanding that you feel impacted throughout the film. Like, I really felt the significance and the weight of that. And it makes for something, like I said, just so raw and honest. It's pretty shocking how brutal this film feels at times, where it is just truly two guys who have a lot of demons battling those demons kind of together on screen. And they do it in such different ways. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is by definition the ultimate showboat. I mean, he's such a strong personality, and Senior has that in him, but Senior is so non-traditional in the way he wields his persona. Junior, of course, is so public. He's had such a tabloid life, where Senior's definitely seems a lot more reserved. You know, he got to really just work in the underground film movement. So you get to see that different style infused within the documentary. So at some points when it's following the Robert Downey Jr. narrative of the documentary, you get to feel that more Robert Downey Jr. essence in it. You get to get the quick laughs. You get to get the snappy dialogue. You get to really, just like I said, feel the showmanship at work. And then when the senior takes over, you feel that irreverent humor that he has in his early filmography. You feel that directorial approach, and you feel senior kind of at some points having them point the camera, having the documentary crew point the camera in the way that he wants it to do. So it's almost senior making a documentary within this documentary while Junior is also doing his project. So it gives for this thing where you have the documentary crew making their film, you have Robert Downey Jr. doing the documentary the way he wants to do it, and then you have Senior doing the film that he wants to do. And they're all kind of coexisting together. And it's just the editing of it all to come together and feel real and feel honest, and just to give an understanding of Junior and Senior in this narrative feature really works to some strong, strong highs in this movie. I found this film, like I said, pretty technically impressive. And this film is at its best, not when it focuses on the artistry or the lives of these people, but just truly when you strip it all down and it becomes a story about a father and a son as the father approaches his death. And it makes for this exploration about the confusion that is associated with death. It's this weirdness around it where you can feel Junior kind of getting more apprehensive as the film goes on, where there's a reality that is setting in that he is no longer going to have his father. And how does one person cope like that, especially when he hasn't had the perfect relationship with his father? So it's this aspect of making up for lost time, but also just coming to terms with something that you're not really ready to come to terms to. And it's the funniness of it. Like, there is so much of this film where Senior is just kind of cracking jokes about the fact that, like, he knows it's going to be over soon enough, and Junior kind of realizes it. And, you know, you have Junior's kids in the movie as well. So it's also not only just the death of a parent for Junior, but for Junior's kids, it's the death of a grandparent, and how that looks, especially in this COVID setting where the documentary is shot during. And it adds so much emotional depth to this movie that's pretty just incredible, and it gives great insight into that. And it's not even like an artist trying to explain death. It is just trying to show, like, this is the reality of it, and we are people trying to make sense of something that feels kind of senseless, and we just wish that we could hold on to a feeling that is evaporating. And that's what this film is always doing. It's always kind of chasing something and chasing a moment that is always going to end. And it makes it just very profound. And like I said, overall, that's what really impressed me about this documentary. It's just so of its own. It is so personal, but it's also, if you view it larger, it is really just a story for anybody. It is truly just a story about life and death and family, about just art. And it's all of these things combined to just make something pretty beautiful and pretty outstanding. Senior is available on Netflix. Highly recommend it. Go check it out. It's probably the best documentary I've seen this year. It is currently flirting on my top 10 list. I don't know if it is on the top 10 list, but I can highly recommend Senior. I think this is a great film that you should check out. I am going the full 4 stars on this movie. As a documentary, this did everything that it needed to, and I'm going 4 out of 4 stars for Senior.